today unfortunately wasn't a very good day as far as the Indian space program was concerned. Let's take a look at this story on the launch of a new rocket. It was the maiden launch, but unfortunately at the last stage things went wrong and the two satellites on board have been lost.
0.
This was meant to be the start of a new series of missions for ISRO on board a brand new rocket, the SSLV, or small-scale launch vehicle. The blast-off from Sriharikota seemed perfect, but minutes later it was clear that something was wrong. Worried scientists peered into their consoles. Data of the rocket's flight parameters showed this: a key system called the velocity trimming module, which helps insert the satellites into the correct orbit, had fired for just 0.1 seconds before shutting down. And about 8 minutes into the flight, this wobble was seen on the flight parameters board. While the satellites were released, and we could see this from video sent back, the news was not good.
We had in the terminal phase of the mission some data loss is occurring, and we are analyzing the data, and we will come back on the status of the satellites and as well as the vehicle performance soon. So until then, please bear with us.
A few hours later, ISRO tweeted out an official explanation. The SSLV rocket had placed the satellites into the wrong elliptical orbit, but they've identified the root of the error.
Subsequently noticed an anomaly in the placement of the satellites in the orbit. The satellites were placed in an elliptical orbit in place of a circular orbit. So when you place satellites in such an orbit, the orbit will not stay for a long time. Due to atmospheric drag, the satellites will come down, and the satellites have already come down from that orbit and they are no longer usable.
On board the SSLV were two satellites, an Earth observation satellite and a second satellite called the Azadi Sat, made by 750 girl students at 75 rural government schools. The 8-kilogram satellite was meant to celebrate India's 75th anniversary of independence. ISRO was out with its explanation of what went wrong within hours of the launch, and they say that they'll have another SSLV rocket out soon. Now this is crucial as ISRO aims to launch missions using this relatively low-cost rocket to place satellites in low Earth orbit, a big market opportunity. Vishnu Shom for NDTV. Well, joining us now, Dr. Madhavan Nair, the former ISRO chief. We are also joined by Ajay Lele, who tracks India's space program very, very closely. Dr. Srimati Kesan, founder and CEO of Space Kids India, which was responsible in building one of the satellites on board, the Azadi Sat, which was lost, joins us as well. And we'll be joined by a student who is part of Space Kids very shortly indeed. Dr. Nair, just in simple terms, what went wrong?
Well, the rocket has to take the spacecraft to the required height. In this case, it was 365 kilometers. And at that altitude, we had to give a velocity of nearly 7.5 kilometer per second. This being an all-solid rocket combination, in order to cater to any small deviation which may take place in the lower stages, a final velocity trimming module is added at the final stage. From the whatever data which has been put out by ISRO, it looks like this velocity trimming module has not given the required velocity increment, and that is a result that though it has reached the altitude, because the velocity was falling short by a certain amount,
right,
it ended up in an elliptical orbit.
Yeah. Dr. Kesan, I understand how disappointed you look. We are all very disappointed, but you've led a group of children in making the Azadi Sat. And I think the real lesson for the kids is that space and engineering is difficult, and that there's a lot to look forward to, but that these failures come. Is that what you're trying to share with them?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because first success is always very sweet. These children are coming out of their rural igloo for the very first time, and to face something like this is very harsh for them. But children are children any day. They are like so confident that, it's okay. Failures are a stepping stone to success. Ma'am, this is what you've taught. So we will work hard, Definitely it's going to be a success the next time, That kind of attitude children have developed. Though the sadness was just for, a couple of minutes, they just bounced back. That's what our children.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of them, Tanvi Patel, joins us as well. Tanvi, are you very disappointed today, or are you hopeful that in the future, Azadi Sat will be back up in the air, perhaps another one which is built? Who knows?
Yes, आजादी सेट हमारे लिए एक बहुत बड़ा प्लेटफॉर्म है बड़े होकर साइंटिस्ट बनने का। वहां से हमें बहुत प्रोत्साहन मिला है। अभी तक कैसे स्पेस में काम होता है, कैसे सब डेटा एकत्रित होता है और कैसे स्पेस में सब चल रहा है, इसके बारे में हमको जानकारी मिली है स्पेस किड्स इंडिया के थ्रू।
Ajay, let me ask you this. We could spend the rest of the evening talking about the technical aspects of this. But isn't it so important that the youngest generation of Indians are exposed to India's space program? Because building up enthusiasm is something which helps engineering and science in our country. So, what Space Kids is doing and what the goal of this mission with that satellite was is actually something which is a key part of what ISRO tries to do, which is to educate.
I think this is a very important statement made by ISRO over a period of time now. If you trace back the history, to my mind, I think in the year 2010, ISRO had launched the student satellite. So over a period of time, ISRO has been engaging students from various parts of the country, from various good universities, say from IITs, and even universities from rural areas also. The job of ISRO right now is to educate people, to generate interest in rocket science and ensure that the future generation of scientists are trained properly and there is an adequate amount of interest in their minds.
Dr. Nair, this particular class of rocket is meant to work towards a fairly lucrative market, low Earth satellites. How important and why is it important for India to get into this, which means we need to fix the problem and fly another rocket soon to prove it?
Well, as you know, there's a requirement for small satellites is going up. The universities, the various institutions, R&D institutions, the children and amateurs, all looking for an opportunity to launch their small satellites. If we want to use a PSLV for that purpose, certainly it can be done, but it needs consolidation of nearly dozens of satellites and then also synchronizing their orbits and so on. Is going to be extremely expensive and time consuming. This SSLV is bridging the gap and definitely is going to be a workhorse launcher for the experimenters, and it will provide an opportunity for low-cost access to space. Definitely, India has got an opportunity to get into international market for launching these small satellites, and I hope soon we will catch up with that.
All right, and just a final question to Ms. Patel, who's a principal, and Tanvi's principal. Ma'am, tell us a little bit about the effort to try and make this satellite. How difficult was it to make this satellite? Tell us about the process, how interested the children were.
हाँ, बच्चों तो बहुत इंटरेस्ट है और ये स्पेस शटल हमें नजर समझ देखने को मिला तो बच्चों तो बहुत मजा आ गई। जिंदगी में कभी नहीं देखने वाली चीज देखी। पर ये बच्चों तो बोलती है मैं तो साइंटिस्ट ही बना है और वो स्पेस में ही जाना चाहती है।
तो आपके स्कूल में कितने स्टूडेंट्स थे जो इस प्रोजेक्ट स्पेस किड्स के साथ मतलब काम कर रहे थे, सैटेलाइट को बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे?
9 स्टूडेंट थे।
9 स्टूडेंट्स थे और वो अब आपके ख्याल से तो जरूर थोड़ा बहुत डिसअपॉइंटेड तो होंगे, पर आप उनको क्या कह रहे कि शायद ये स्पेस में शायद फेलियर्स होते हैं, पर उनको अपना मोटिवेशन रखना चाहिए, शायद आपका मैसेज शायद यही है?
हाँ, मेरी बच्चियों को मोटिवेशन तो मिला जब नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने मन की बात में बात की और अब आज ये प्रोग्राम देखा तो सब बच्चियों को इंटरेस्ट हो जाए कि हमें स्पेस पे ही काम करना है और श्रीमती केसन की कामगिरी बहुत अच्छी है, इसी वजह से बच्चों को बहुत मजा आ गया है।
All right, well that's fantastic to hear. One final question to you, Dr. Kesan, are you going to go back to the well, not to the drawing board, but are you going to try and fabricate one more Azadi sat?
In fact, we have started that en route, to Chennai. We have already started the drawings, and we wanted to enhance, the subsystems even better And we wanted to see that, smile on these children, to give them the data, because every child was looking forward to have a data and to work on the experiments. So, we wanted to give them that happiness back. So very soon we are getting back to that. In fact, en route from Sriharikota, we started sketching the structure also.
Right. Well, ma'am, your optimism is infectious, and I think that's the way it should be.
Science is that. So,
So, Tanvi, there's no need for you to get disappointed, and I'm sure you're going to become a scientist or an engineer somewhere in the not too distant future. So keep up your spirit, and I'm sure ISRO will get it right next time around. Thank you all very much for joining us. Out of time on this program from all of us here. Good night.